Okay, you guys, let's do this. It's going to be so professional. Like, so professional. Here we go. Welcome to the Live Support Podcast with your hosts, Michele VanDusen and June Colson, a couple of clean comedians who support each other and others through comedy's wacky and winding roads. I hope you're ready. Get set. Let's go. Since podcasts have a catchy tune, we wrote this song for Michele and June. Clean comedians are best friends too. Oh, it's so good. And you never know what they'll say or do. Here we go, sing with me on Live Support, with Michele, who's really short. We'll have a ball, with June, who's really tall. They have fun, interviewing comedians on Live Support, with Michele, who's really short. Now it's time to start Live Support.
The Live Support Podcast is brought to you by the Hot Breath Comedy Network.
Wow, give yourself a round of applause. Woo! That was magic.
Welcome to the award-winning Live Support Podcast. I'm your host, June Bug Colson, here with Michele with one L, Trisha's sister, Rhonda Colson, Corey's friend. Don't call me Shelly.
Nope.
Prepping for vampires, Michele VanDusen. Michele, come on. Listen, listeners, we are so happy that you're here with us today. I can't even deal with Michele today. It's one of those days where Michele, do you know you sometimes say the most random things that make my head want to explode? And today was one of those. Y'all, I have to tell you, so you know, we record these podcasts about 10:30 in the morning, and for Michele and I as comedians, 10:30 might as well be 5 a.m. That's early.
Oh.
That's early for comedians. And Michele was on the struggle bus today. She was running late. You know, we give each other grace. And then Michele tells me she's lightheaded. That she's been lightheaded, you know, for a couple days. And I'm like, wow, you know, I'm kind of concerned about my friend. And then Michele, tell us why you think you're lightheaded. What have you diagnosed yourself with?
Well,
no backstory. What have you diagnosed yourself with? What do you think? Why do you think you're lightheaded, Michele?
excessive amounts of garlic.
Yes, excessive amounts. Okay. Also, Michele, Are you Italian?
Yeah.
Yeah. So have you been lightheaded your whole life?
That would explain why they always called me Ditzy. No,
I know. Okay. I know that garlic can be a blood thinner. I know that, right? Is that what you're about to tell us? Tell us. Is that what your theory is?
I wasn't going to say anything about thinning the blood or any of that kind of stuff because I'm not going to, no medical advice here. But I do know that one of the side effects of too much garlic in your system can cause you to be a little lightheaded.
But this is like 24 hours later, Michele. You ate garlic yesterday. How much garlic are you eating? I just imagine like a giant volleyball size garlic that you're just gnawing on garlic until you're dizzy. What is happening at your house?
What I'm saying is it finally dawned on me what it possibly could have been. No, so I really, really, really wanted a calzone this weekend.
Uh-huh.
Like, and if you don't know what that is, it's kind of like a pizza, flattened, doubled
like
over
sandwich
and stuffed with things on the inside. Yeah. And because it was going to have the ricotta cheese, it was going to have the mozzarella. It was, and I wanted to.
I'm sorry, it was going to have ricotta and what?
I'm sorry, mozzarella cheese.
Mozzarella?
Mozzarella. Anyway, so
don't dismiss me. Say it one more time the way you said it.
The mozzarella. The mozzarella.
It sounds like when some of my family members go to the Mexican restaurant and they try to pretend to have an accent and they're like, get me the quesadilla. they try to sound like they know how to pronounce words. Mozzarella. That's what I'm going to say from now on. I like extra mozzarella. Yeah. Did I do it?
Yeah, that was something almost. It was so close. But you
Okay.
can't get that at Little Caesars or, Domino. You're not going to get the good cheese. So I
What kind
wanted
of cheese? Not the good what?
mozzarella.
Mozzarella.
Anyway,
Keep going.
so so I wanted a good calzone. And there's a restaurant here called Umberto's, and they
I'm
have,
sorry, is it Umberto's?
yeah, it's Umberto apostrophe S, Umberto's. And not a sponsor, but I love their pizza. Like theirs is the big, so it's like a New York style kind of a thing, which I know it goes against my Chicago roots, but that's what they have, right? So I
Mhm.
just lost my glasses. Time to get a new pair. Anyway, so I lost my headband. Uh, so I wanted a good one. So the other day when I told Ross, like 2 weeks ago, I'm like, yeah, I want to have a calzone. And he was telling me the price of it. And I was like, okay. I didn't flinch at it because I knew that they had the good ingredients. So I was okay with it. Well, then when the calzone showed up, he actually purchased it from a different location because it was less expensive. So he bought me, ugh, and I was like, oh, this isn't the calzone I wanted. This is, no good. So this weekend, I'm like, I really could go for a good calzone. So he went ahead. We got the good the
The
very
good
expensive.
calzone.
We got
Yes.
the good food this weekend.
You didn't specify last time. You said I want a calzone, so he got you a
Oh,
calzone. This
I
time you said
told
I
him.
want
No, I
a good
told him where I
calzone.
wanted it, and he told me the price of it, and then he just balked at the price, and so he's like, "I'm not doing it," because you know how everything has gone more expensive
Oh
and more
yeah.
expensive. And yeah, because like the pizza that he and his buddy usually gets, it's almost like $50 now. Like it's gone up anyway because it's got all the meats anyway. So he not only got the calzone, but he also got the garlic knots. And
Ah.
I didn't want any garlic knots because that's just extra breading. But I can't resist the garlic knots
You
because they're
you got to eat
delicious.
them.
It's like a whole jar of garlic, like the minced garlic that's already been chopped up. So it's, I don't know, what is it, like 10 cloves of garlic or more,
Sounds
that
like it.
it's, yeah. So just all just in there. And
And
he
if you
ate
stacked
one.
up like 10 cloves of garlic, it's probably taller than you.
Yeah.
I don't think you're supposed to eat something that's
you
taller than
you
you.
just eat the bulb, so so it's close, it's a close
Yes.
anyway. So I he had one, and then I ate the garlic nuts, and then had part of my calzone because, oh, it was so good. But yet anyway, the whole point is it was a lot of garlic. It was a
And
lot of
now, 6 days later, Michelle is still
no,
lightheaded from garlic.
2 days. No, like I was a
Two
little
days.
I was lightheaded yesterday, and I was like, that's weird, and so I'm investigating all the, the just going down the
Mhm.
rundown. Have I had my vitamins? Have I
Uh-huh.
this, that,
Did
that?
you drink
Who,
water? Did you drink
who
water and lemon? Every time I could tell Michelle that I severed a limb, and she'd be like, "You need to be drinking water with lemon. That's going to heal that." So now I'll drink water with lemon and I'll avoid garlic. Again, as Michelle stated at the beginning of the podcast, we don't follow us for any health advice at all. If anything, you might want to do the opposite of anything that you hear on the Laugh Support podcast because we're comedians, not doctors.
not doctors. Anyway, so yeah, so it was this morning when I was late in bed. I thought, I got to get ready for the show today. But I was a little lightheaded. I'm like, I'm like, oh, it was the garlic I ate. And so it just kind
Sure,
of,
it
because it takes
was.
a couple of days to kind of, blend out a little. So just saying.
Well, while I was waiting for the podcast to start, I was sitting here going, "Ooh, I got to think of like a vampire pun, And I tried really hard, Michelle, but all the puns about vampires that I could think of, they just sucked.
Wow. You did a show recently.
Michelle, it's
Yeah, yeah, I
on.
heard you. You did a show recently with some dogs. So I wanna say, what kind of dog did the vampire have as a pet?
What?
A bloodhound.
That was so good. You came back so fast. You were very dismissive of my stupid pun, and I'm angry because I tolerate yours more than anyone should ever have to tolerate a pun. All right, so let's get to the laugh support stuff. Let's start talking about the funny, okay? So you're unhinged with your garlic issues.
Yeah.
And I think it's great that you're now on a tour called Moms Unhinged. And so the last time that we talked, you were booked for a couple shows with them, and they haven't even seen you on the stage yet, but they know how amazing you are. And you've now added more shows. Is that right?
Yes. I got to host a couple in Kansas, so it's pretty exciting. And I think that's what you asked me earlier, like what was funny that happened today, and it's about the hosting stuff. So
Yes.
we'll hit that in a couple of episodes later. I think we'll go into more details on why I love hosting.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, way to tease them and give them nothing,
That's right.
This is why my generation has ADHD. It's because of the to be continued, right? Nobody has to deal with to be continued anymore. You can wait till a series comes out, and I won't watch anything now unless it's the complete series, or at least like 5 episodes in, because you can just sit and watch them. But like the worst thing that you could see at the end of an episode in the 80s was the words "to be continued." The Dukes of Hazzard, one of my favorite shows, they were the worst about that. There was always a "to be continued," and it was always like Bo and Luke jumping some kind of movie.
And it's right here. It's right here.
It ends right there. It stops right there. They're hanging over the train, and I have to wait.
Do you remember when Fonzie was jumping the shark?
Oh, that's right.
They stopped him right there in midair.
That's true. That's true. There was so many episodes like that, and then like having to sit and wait, couldn't do it. Like the best thing ever now is to be able to binge watch episodes. But so we're excited about you doing the Moms Unhinged. You're getting to do performances with them. Now you're getting to do some hosting as well, which is that's a different situation.
Oh yeah.
When you're on a tour like that, as far as if you were hosting a comedy club, situation, you're doing a little bit of time, you introduce some people, it's pretty chill, make some announcements. But when it's on a tour and you're hosting, that's different, isn't it?
It is, because it's not just the stage hosting. There's also the backstage part and the door stuff. Like there's more. So it's hosting plus. Yeah, it's a hosting extraordinaire position versus just hosting. Yeah, because like if you're at a club, you don't have to worry about tickets, because someone else is already taking care of that. You don't have to worry about what's in the green room. Someone else is already taking care of that. So it's boots on the ground kind of hosting, which is fun, and I like that. So I hope that they enjoy garlic knots, because that's what they're all getting. Gotta stay healthy.
We know what food will be in the green room. But I think, what I think is cool about that is that, we think of like when you first start out, you're learning to host, and then, you get an opening spot and then feature. And like, there's different, almost in the comedy club setting, different tiers to your abilities. And, and you don't, a headliner's not hosting anymore and those type of things. But the reality is that like, it's not a skill set that just goes away or is unimportant, because like in the situation you're in right now, and both of us are part of different tours, that it's different. That's different than a comedy club setting. And so it's not a step back to be hosting something like that. A lot of times it's more responsibility when you are put in that position and you are trusted with the flow of the show and interacting with the venue, the people at the venue, and those type of things. And so I think you're playing a different role than what it would look like if it was a host at a comedy club.
Yeah, which that's typically the direction that people go is, first you're an open micer, you got your 5 minutes, and then, then you kind of build a little bit. So now you got your 15. Oh, now I'm going to host. And so now, now you're getting paid or whatever. So now you get to,
Mhm.
do a little bit of that, and you have to learn the flow and, kind of a deal. And then now you're a feature, now you're a headliner, and a headliner typically never goes back to hosting. Oh, I
Right.
can't. Oh, it's so beneath me. But if you look at the trend of what's happening nowadays, if you really look at it, you look and you see that there are some major headliners in that
Mhm.
sense that are creating their own tours, but their own, it's, it'd be like Junebug and Friends.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it
Yep.
would be your event. So then you're the one that comes out and hosts it.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
come out, you host it, and you introduce your comedian friends, and then, so you still do all the things, but then you do your spot at the end. You still do the
Mhm.
headlining position. It's about having a great show for the audience. And it's always sad when I see that there's headliners that look down on the ones below them, because
Yeah.
we're not really below.
Mm-mm.
We're peers,
Yeah.
that some are just better than, they're at a different position than we are. They're getting
Yeah.
paid way more than we, like this
Yeah.
these little tier thingies. But I love how I'm watching the comedy scene in Tulsa, that people aren't fighting and putting people down
Mhm.
anymore. Like that was years ago. Like it was cutthroat. It was
Yeah.
mean. It
Yeah.
was a mean place. And now it's a building, like there's room for all of us.
Mhm.
And as long as you can keep the jealousy
Yeah.
out, then it's nice. But yeah, hosting it's a skill. And I loved what Dan said to us, right, about, at the end,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
always leave them with, I'm like, I have been that was just an eye-opening moment, and has definitely changed how I end a show. So I'm
Oh,
really excited.
same. That was one of the first things, like, I was talking to some of our friends, and I was like, "Oh, man, we, got to," because Dan was friends with a lot of my friends here in the Kentucky, Tennessee area.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, this tip that he gave us, and you guys can go back and listen to the episode with Dan again. But basically, the recap was that the owner of Zany had told him to end on the high, that normally the host will come out and they'll be like, oh, Nate Bargatze, wasn't he great? Da 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 da, and they'll clap and whatever. And then they'll say, all right, coming up at the club is this, and this, and they do all the announcements. And you see that all the time. You see that
Hmm.
all the time.
Yeah.
But the owner of Zany's told Dan, he said, don't do that. When you come out, go straight to, hey guys, the club has got this, and this going on, and blah, blah, blah. And then you go, and one more time for Nate Bargatze, wasn't this an awesome show? So you pump them back up. You remind them of what a great time they just had.
Yeah.
So I actually used that this last weekend
Nice.
at a music festival that I was at, because normally I would like do my closer. And then I would say, thank you guys, please follow me at Junebug Comedy and da 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 da, and Jesus Junebug loves you. And I'm out. So
Yeah.
this time, and Michelle, my closer, but I do a McDonald's thing. And then I followed up with this Chick-fil-A deal. And so I implemented that. So this time I did the McDonald's thing on my last set. And then I was like, hey, follow me, do my comedy. You guys been awesome, da 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 da. And then I did the Chick-fil-A thing and I
Nice.
closed it. So I've always been so bad about not promoting myself at the end
You
of the show.
sandwiched it.
Yeah, yeah. So I sandwiched it in there, like a calzone, with lots of mozzarella in the middle of it. Um, but it was the same tip, just applied in a different way, and it reminded me to promote myself and to promote my social media and the podcast, because I'll forget to do that and I go off stage. Yes, there you go. Follow me at Junebug Comedy and junebugcomedy.com. That's where you can find me. And the Laugh Support Podcast. Definitely follow the Laugh Support Podcast. So that's what I did. I took Dan's tip for hosting, and I use that actually in my closer. And the other thing that you just mentioned was the skill set of these headliners. And you're saying it's rare that they go back, but then now they're having these friend shows. So
Yeah.
Zany's in Nashville. We talked about, I think I talked about this, that Christy and I, Condor, went and saw our friend Brian Bates do his Brian Bates and Friends show
Yeah.
at Zany's The Lab. So they have a separate room now off of the main room of Zany's where they do smaller, more intimate shows. And our friend Brian Bates was hosting that. Now, Brian Bates is a headliner. He is part of the Nate Land podcast with Nate Bargatze. He is part of Nate's kind of, what would you call it? His group of comedians, the people that are kind of in Nate's inner circle. And Brian hosted. So Brian came out. He welcomed everybody. He did some time. He introduced everyone, did a little bit of time in between, tried some new things out. And then at the end brought out the surprise guest, Nate Bargatze, right? So we got to see Nate come and work a little bit of material. And a lot of that is for these headliner comics to come and try out some stuff. But you are exactly right. So you got this headliner who's, riding with and blazing his own trail in the Nashville comedy scene. And he hosted, and he did a great job of that. It was a skill set he learned and he's kept and he's still using as a headliner. So that was a great point.
Yeah. Well, I've also noticed that on these shows, so like I saw Angela Johnson, and Brian opened for her.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
On her tour.
He did.
And so he did like on some of those things, like when you have the comedian before you, a lot of times that's part of it. They introduce you. Like that's another thing where they don't have a host come back out and introduce. Sometimes you're the one that's introducing them, kind of a thing, which I've always felt like that's always been kind of an awkward kind of intro, because you're like, thank you. Okay, coming up,
let's talk about that. Let's talk about that, because I had that situation with a comedian who I booked, and you could tell they were not happy about that. Like they were very much like, ugh. Like even commented what you just said. Like you're like, and they're clapping and all that. And you're like, now next, And I get it, but also I'm like, what is the psychology behind that? You know what I mean? Because it's almost like a prideful thing to me of like, you just had your big moment and they're like, yay. And then you humble yourself to introduce the next person. It's almost, to me, like I can't, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm saying for me, it's like, and I've done that before. Generally, I only do that if it's a showcase, right? Because I don't think and I've done that a few times here in Bowling Green, brought in like 6-7 comedians, and we're doing 10 minutes, and it really is like a church who just, it's almost an audition for them to be able to come back and be the headliner at that church. Right. So everybody's doing like 10 minutes. So you don't need me. I'll host them. You don't need me as the host popping up 6 times.
Or do we?
No, I don't think you do. So what I do is like, I'll do time. I introduce the first comedian. I come up between the second comedian. And then that comedian, I ask to introduce the next one. So basically they're like, thank you so much. Hey, your next comic up is Michele VanDusen. And I have them not do a long intro. Michelle's from Tulsa, Oklahoma, part of Life Support Podcast. Y'all give her a round of applause. And that's it. So they're not having to stand there and do it long. So I get it. But then also part of me is like, it feels like it's like, I don't know. It's different. It changes the flow of the show. But then my brain also kind of goes to, but is that just a prideful thing because you got your big applause and now you don't want to be I don't, and introduce the next person? Because I really don't think it makes a big difference to the show, but it can make a big difference to the comedian.
Yeah, I think what's weird is it's just awkward standing there after they're done clapping for you. You didn't leave. So
they clap for you when you're done? I haven't had that happen. Maybe that's what my problem is.
They're supposed to clap. They're supposed to stand up. Yeah, standing ovations, all those things.
Right.
But it's just an awkward moment. Just stand there and go, and waiting for that to die down till you want to say the next thing, right? So like that, to me, if I was the next time I was ever to run a show, because I did have a showcase show one time, and I had that, where they, oh no, I hosted all of that, didn't I? Anyway, I think I would have from off stage, I would have the actual host
Oh, yeah.
announcing of, okay, hey, let's keep going for so and so as they're walking off. I don't think people need to see you shake their hand and good job, buddy. Like, I don't think people need to see that. I think it's totally fine. And the thing is, if the comic before you though doesn't put the microphone stand back where it's supposed to be and the mic back where it's supposed to be, that's, as a host, you're supposed to make sure that you're also resetting the stage at the same time.
Right. Yeah.
So if they don't do that, then you have to get back up there and do that. Like, that's a thing.
Yeah, that's true. I'm the worst about forgetting my water bottle. Like I'll leave my water on the stand. Like I'll forget and I'll walk off with,
You are a typical artist.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing. Like, production people always leave their waters everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like, you don't deserve a tall water bottle. You should take a Stanley Cup with you.
But I try to balance it out because I always clean up the green room after everyone. I can't stand, like, this weekend, it was a bunch of musicians and stuff. And so there was water bottles everywhere.
Yeah.
And I don't want to leave someplace messy, and I'm not responsible for any of those people. Right. But I'm looking at all these bottles sitting around everywhere. And I'm just like, I'm like allergic. I'm itching. I'm like, I just want to throw the trash away. And not like, and I'll put my initials on mine, so I know for sure. I bring a permanent marker in my backpack, and I'll put my initials on my bottle of water, because that's the worst when you look around and you're like, oh no, it's a sea of open bottles. Which one has my lips been on? And I don't want to touch someone else's. So
yeah, I put mine under lock and key. I don't like anybody touching my water. The only person I'll trust holding my water is my husband.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. I can't. It's just, who did you drink out of this? Did you spit in this? What happened? Like, I can't. It's got to be.
Yeah.
So
are you sure that Ross isn't sneaking some garlic packets into your water? Are you sure that's... Maybe.
No, because people say, oh, you have garlic breath, right? It's not that you're that it's in your oral, or you're breathing it back out because it's attached to your lungs. So you're actually breathing it out. So people can smell.
But garlic is good for you, though. It is good for you.
It's very, very good for you. It's very good for you. Garlic.
Yeah. Back to the garlic. Hey, okay. So this weekend, I got to do Release the Hounds. I'm wearing the t-shirt. They gave me a t-shirt. Gave my husband one too. He was like so thrilled. He was like, I never get gifts. They drive us. They're like a part of our biggest supporters, and they rarely get recognition when they're kind of in the background, hanging out and hanging on, right? But he got a t-shirt this weekend from the folks at the Release the Hounds. So that was
that's
really
nice.
cool.
What is Release the Hounds? What is that about? Is it like a hunting thing where you go fox hunting and you got to release the hounds?
No, not at all, Michelle. I love you. Release the hound. That was very Melissa McCarthy of you. You looked like when she does the pizza. Oh my gosh, we're talking about Italian food. One of my favorite skits is one that she did on SNL with
Pizza Eater.
Yeah, the pizza eater.
I'll just eat the pizza. So you're like, oh no, what do we do?
Yes.
I know. Hey.
That was very, when you did Release the Hounds, it reminded me of her. No, Release the Hounds is a really cool organization. I wish I had it pulled up so I could read their, description. But my understanding is that they raise money to what it says, I think, on their website, for animals to live their best lives. But basically my understanding is they help open animal shelters. They help cover cost for surgeries for different animals. It's not just dogs.
Surgery, like snip and clip surgeries, or for like
Potentially, I'm not sure. So yeah,
cancer?
I would definitely encourage you to go to their website and check out. I think it's releasethehounds.org, but not difficult to find.
Oh,
Yes. So anyway, a lady named Rebecca Seitz is who hired me to come do the show. And when I tell you, one of the sweetest people, I mean, so kind. And her husband is a musician, and he's in a band called the Flat River Band. And I will tell you, I am now a huge fan of the Flat River Band. They they're just crazy talented. It's that old school kind of country sound to it. The harmony is insane. Has a bluegrassy vibe. I'm not, as I shared with them, I'm not a musician. I literally got kicked out of a kazoo band when I was 7 years old. I know nothing about music, but I know what sounds good and I know what I like. And I am definitely a fan of their music. But even more than that, so they're brothers. It's I think Andy and Chad and Denny Joe, and that's Rebecca's husband. And I wish I had more time to spend with those guys. First of all, because when you meet people and you're like, these are just the nicest, most genuine people.
yeah.
That was literally those brothers. So the Flat River Band is made up of those three guys. They're brothers. So no wonder their voices sound great together, right? Great genetics. But they were so kind. But also the Denny Joe, he had this ornery look about him. Like he seemed like he could get in a lot of trouble and be really fun. Like he was just one of those dudes that I'm like, this guy would fit in with comedians. You could tell he has a great sense of humor and just a fun person. But he's connected to Trey Corley. He's friends with Trey Corley, who leads the band at the Huckabee Show.
Okay.
And I believe they write music together and that type of thing. And so anyway, I've done the Huckabee Show, I don't know how many times now. But I've never actually spoke to Trey Corley. I've never, because his job, I mean, he's leading the band. Mm-hmm. And so he's in he's in his place and preparing for the show by the time I get there. And really there's no reason for what I'm doing in his job to ever, our paths just don't cross unless you are performing on the show that they're recording. Mm-hmm. He's not even out there, I don't believe, when I go out, depending on when I'm doing the warm up. So sometimes he's not even, excuse me, setting where he is during the show. Yeah. So I was telling Denny Joe, I'm like, I've never actually got to meet him. I've worked for the same group several times, but I've never actually got to meet him. But he was really fun and funny, and it was an outdoor music festival. So every comedian is like, don't ever work outside, don't do it. Like in acting, they say what? Don't work with animals
or kids
or children, right? And this is an event where I was outside. There were kids and there were animals. There were dogs and they were barking, and there was a monkey.
So you didn't get an applause break. You got a dog break.
I got a dog break. I got a bark break. They were barking. They were so thrilled with my comedy. But the first animal that I got to meet was a monkey. It was a monkey and a baby stroller wearing an outfit, and her name was Stella. And I'm like, this is where I need to be.
Did they have
These are my people?
The little box with the monkey. Did it dance?
Yes. She just popped out. Like, no, I'm not sure where they were throughout the show, but they were there. One of the first people there that I got to meet was this
Stella.
Lady. Her name was Stella.
Stella the monkey. And what was the handler's name?
There was a monkey. Do you think my ADHD brain got anywhere past the monkey? Like normally I like to meet people and talk to people, but I couldn't. There was a monkey, Michelle, and the monkey was wearing clothes. When I came back out, I was like, normally the comedians point out the elephant in the room, but I'm pointing out the monkey at the festival, right?
That outfit is a killer outfit. I want that outfit. Do they make that like extra tall?
Yes. Well, and here's the thing. Twice I had jokes about animals wearing clothes. Yes, I think I actually did tell the joke. I don't know. My brain, I did 2 sets that were 40 minutes apart from each other. They were both 20-minute sets. So basically 40 minutes of comedy. No one was sitting anywhere close to the stage, maybe like 4 people, because it was an outdoor festival. So where the sun was shining, people were like in a pavilion, like way far away.
Oh
And
yeah. I will be in the shadows at any outdoor thing.
yes,
I bring my own umbrella. Whereas my sister, she will sit in the sun. Like she'll
yes.
slather on, back in the day when it was okay to put like oils on your body to
Oh yeah,
tan,
yeah.
so she'd sit out there and tan. And I'm like, I'm burning in the shade,
Yes. We tan
but I
like
can
baked
hear the music.
potatoes back in the day. You were laying on aluminum foil and you were covered yourself in some kind of cooking oil and
Oh,
like, just
yeah.
baking the flesh. But yeah, so it was a typical outdoor event as far as
Yeah.
no one was up on the stage. It's definitely not like doing comedy at a comedy club. It's
Oh,
the
no.
lights aren't out, people aren't focused on you. There was a whole game of hacky sack going on in the grass beside me. There was a
Yeah.
monkey, there's dogs playing, there's food with generators and stuff like that going on. And so as a comedian, you got to be just understanding that you're in that environment and not expecting an audience to react the way that they do in a comedy club. But
Yeah.
when I tell you, the people there were so sweet. They were so much fun to do comedy for. I mean, I'm far away, so I had to go by the faces. I'm seeing, getting to watch their faces and stuff. And there were a lot of people who were just smiling and they were going along with me. And there was one particular guy, his name was Michael. And Michael was in a wheelchair and he had his service dog with him. And he was kind of scooting around. I'm not sure like if he had gone to get food or what, but oh my gosh, he was cracking me up because he was cracking up at the comedy while he was on the move. And like when I did the bit about hair, Michelle, you expect the women in the audience to comment when I talk about what hairspray we used back in the 80s or whatever. And he was scooting through with his dog and I just hear him go, Aquanet. So after the show, I made sure that I went over because him and his group were kind of sitting to the side of the pavilion, and they were having such a good time, and they were interacting with me, and I could see their smiles all the way from there. So after the show, I went over and introduced myself and just told them like, you were the best laughter here. Thank you so much. Because I think a lot of times, people will come up to us later. There was a gentleman who came up to me after, and him and his wife were like way in the back of the pavilion.
Yeah.
And he came up, introduced himself, and he goes, I want to tell you did such a great job. And he said, I know this is not like a comedy, club environment. And he said, my wife and I were like way in the back and we were cracking up. And he goes, not that you need validation. I just wanted you to know that we thought you were hilarious. And I'm thinking,
but on the inside, you're thinking, yes, I did. I
I
did.
know, right? Tell him, Michelle. I'm like, we're comedians. We need validation. That's why we do our job, right?
Yeah. Well, that's what's so good and a key component is because a lot of times if you're on stage and you see someone like this, you're going to focus your attention on the one that's not laughing. But you said a very key thing that's very, very important is you focused on the one that had the friendly face. You focused on the one that was laughing because, and the thing that people don't understand sometimes is when you're doing that large of an event, and I say large because it's, comedy club, the ceiling is low, the laughs, everybody's tight in, and you're going to hear the laughter is kind of, like a C where it just kind of keeps swooshing in kind of a deal.
Yeah.
So a larger event when you have open air and the potential of, your laughs get lost, that you're on a system where your voice is traveling. So people in the parking lot could still hear you and they could be enjoying it, depending on what kind of system you're on. So you always have to just, you're performing and you have to remember that I'm performing for the one in the back.
Yes. Yeah.
In theater classes and stuff. I don't know if you ever took acting or anything like that, but, or even singing, they're always like, use your diaphragm and you want to hit the person, you want to hit that back wall, hit that back, and it's that same kind of a thing. You have to remember that that's the one that you're reaching when you're doing that kind of event. I'm actually really surprised, June, that you said yes to an outdoor event. And here's my reason why I'm surprised, and why you'd never even considered the fact that outdoors means there's possibility of bees and bugs.
Yes. Yes.
Like, because I know you can't, like, that would have been
Uh-uh.
hilarious, and tragic if a bee was on the stage anywhere near you. You would
Yeah.
have been running around like chicken with its head cut off, like, ah! That would have been
Yes.
a whole nother skit happening.
And this was so this was Johnny Cash's old farm. Johnny Cash owned this farm. They have a museum for him, like at the end of the road, and then you go down this lane and stuff.
Oh,
And so it
neat.
has a lot of like the older outbuildings. And I was on a wood stage, like a wood building with So
Ooh.
bees love wood, and at no point like
Well,
did
carpenter bees do.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So little Jesus bees. They like to. Yeah. I can't deal with bees. You are absolutely correct.
And it's
But here's
outdoor
what's
sweat
crazy.
bees.
The lady who booked me, obviously she had looked up my comedy at some point, but was really more. I feel like she was more drawn to me, or I got the impression because her and her sister both said that they had heard me on a podcast
Hmm.
and they enjoyed my testimony.
Oh, nice.
And so obviously they these people are Christians. It wasn't a Christian event, but I think that maybe that just was a connection that they felt with me outside of just the comedy, but there was a
Yeah.
connection. And they, oh my gosh, they were just so kind. And yeah, it definitely stretches you as a
Yeah.
comedian to do events that are not set up perfectly for comedy. But like you said, I go back to when God called me into this thing, and I have to remind myself that He tells me if I'm there for somebody,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm either there for Him and Him alone, or there is someone in that space and in that place that God's like, even if the comedy doesn't hit, there's a reason He wanted them to meet me or me to meet them. I was
Yeah.
doing the devotion the day before, and it was about equations.
Mm.
And I think the author in that devotion said something to the effect of, today you were supposed to be part of that equation. And sometimes in the
Sometimes in the equation, what happens?
yes, sometimes in the equation, we're multiplying things. Sometimes, something's being subtracted. Maybe God's trying to remove something from us that maybe it is the pride, maybe it is the fear, maybe it's the anxiety or the not trusting Him. And God's like, I'm gonna use this event to try and subtract that from your life, where I add more faith by going and doing something that's different or out of your comfort zone. And so I kind of looked around and went, I'm here for a reason, for somebody. And so at the end, when I went and spoke to Michael, which was really cool, the dude used to drive for comedians. Well, he used to drive, I think in LA is what he told me. If I get the story wrong, I'm sorry if Michael ever listens to the podcast. But anyway,
is his name Michael, or have you changed it for the safety of?
It is actually Michael, but I do feel bad that I gave the full name of Rebecca. Nobody bothered that woman. If you reach out to her, you better just be given money to release the Hounds, is all I'm saying. But yeah, so he was telling me he used to drive like in LA, maybe, but he had driven people like Jeff Foxworthy and Henry Cho, Janine Garofalo, like, and he just loved comedy. And him and his group who were sitting over there that I was having so much time with, the lady was like, I felt like we just had our own comedy show today. She goes, we were rolling with you the whole time. That was so much fun. And nice. She said, she said, it just felt like the show was just for us. And man, that meant the world to me. That was really cool to experience that. We stuck around a little bit. The other group was Boomtown Saints. And they had all these beautiful women and like little Boomtown Saint tank tops and like black breeches and like just looking like little hotties coming through there. A whole group of beautiful women were there for the guys. And I'm like, comedians, we don't get that, you know, like the most,
Okay.
you know, group I ever had is just my dad, and he's there to heckle, you know, so.
So you lost me for a minute because you're like Boomtown Saints. I'm like, what? You did another show? No, you're talking about people that came to listen to the musicians.
Music, yes, yeah, yeah.
Okay. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, so there were 3 bands, and Flat River Band was basically almost like the host. They opened the show and they closed the show.
Mhm.
Then they had these guys, Boomtown Saints,
Okay.
and then Outlaw Apostles, and then the Flat River Band came back out. But yeah, they the Boomtown Saints, they had a whole like a group of people, and then I think it was the next group. I don't know. Either way, I went back to the VIP area, and there were like these beautiful girls in country outfits because it was country music festival.
Yeah.
And like they had fans that were there to watch them. I guess a comedian. I don't know that that'll ever happen, and I'm okay with that. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was a unique experience. It was for a great organization with some of the nicest people you could possibly meet. And I'm a girl named June, and I got to be at Johnny Cash's farm. Johnny and June, baby. You can't get much better than that, Michelle. That was really cool to get to be there.
See, that sounds amazing. Like just the fact that you got to go there. I love country music, and even with the bluegrass feel and that kind of a thing.
Yes.
And it sounds like your family, like your sister and her band and all
Yes.
that, like that they would fit very well with that group. Like
Yeah.
that just seemed like, oh, they should have been on it too. You know, maybe they can get it bigger. I did look up some of the Release the Hounds. So they get food. They have bedding for dogs. They've got like so much stuff for the So yeah, definitely if you get a chance, donate to Release the Hounds because and it is the releasethehounds.org. So so that's really really cool. And you were at Johnny Cash's farm. I mean, come on. Like you can't like that's awesome.
Also, I was right down the road from our amazing friends Jeff and Tammy. Jeff Allen. And Jeff has been a mentor and friend of mine for a long time. And because it ended earlier in the day, it was like a daytime festival. Jason and I were able to go to Jeff and Tammy's, and she is always such a good cook. She made homemade chicken salad on crescent rolls, and we
I'm so jealous.
hung out. Do I?
I'm so jealous right now just because Tammy is amazing. And and you had food. Oh.
Yeah, it was good. It was so good. It was funny. She goes, where were you been? What was the show? And I said, oh, it was a music festival. And she was like, outside? And I go, yeah, because comedians are like working outside. And she starts laughing. She goes, Jeff, June just did a show outside. And he goes, oh man. So we sat down, and he goes, let me tell you about my last outdoor event. Michelle, a couple episodes back, we had Dory McLemore and Christy Condor, and we talked about like difficult gigs and outdoor shows.
Yeah.
Dory with her roller coaster story, doing comedy in front of a roller coaster. That was great. That was great. Jeff is right there with her. He said his last outdoor event was at like 8:00 in the morning outside in front of a hot air balloon that they were airing up. So he's like, he would do a setup, and then the balloon would go. He's like, there were 12 people in lawn chairs with a hot air balloon hopping onto the background. So
that's the worst heckle ever.
Yeah. He said, I told my agent, never again. I'll never do an outdoor event again. Never. And fast forward to like a year or two later, when someone offered him stupid money to come do an outside event, and he's like, make an exception. One more exception. But that's going to lead us to my tip of the day, and we will close this thing out. So my tip of the day was measuring stick. So this comes from our friend Jeff Allen, because we sat and talked about comedy for quite a bit, and I had just done the Kentucky Comedy Festival and got to open for Jeff at one of the shows. And so I was talking about just this feeling of when do you get there? You know what I mean? When do you get there when you really feel comfortable with and confident with your material? And I said, sometimes it feels like it's like 50% of the time, it's a good show, a not good show, a good show, a not good show. And I said, I referenced an event that we had done together. And I said, like that particular show, it wasn't bad, but it just didn't feel like a great set. It didn't feel like, and he goes, yeah, but think about your measuring stick. And I was like, okay. And he said, how you measure a good set now is totally different than how you would have measured it 2 years ago or 3 years ago. What would have felt like, wow, had a good set. I remember my jokes. They laughed 3 times and you left going, that was great, right? And he said, that's changed for you now. So the expectations you've placed on yourself are different than the ones that you had before. And he said, so pay attention to how you're measuring what was good and what wasn't, because sometimes we're not using the right measuring stick. Sometimes we are not giving ourselves grace or even recognizing how far we've come, or that was a set we would have appreciated a while back, right? And he said, but now you have higher expectations for yourself, but you still got to give yourself grace.
Yeah.
And so just pay attention, comedians, to your measuring stick. Kind of look at you with your ruler there. Maybe you can measure the amount of garlic that you eat from now on, Michele, so that you're not dizzy whenever we do our podcast. Yes, we need to mark the measuring stick to how much garlic. So pay attention to your measuring stick. See where you were before, and sometimes if you're struggling, measure your growth. Measure how far you've come, measure how much stronger you've got, measure how much material that you have now versus what you had a year ago, and give yourself some credit for the work that you've put in and how far you've grown. So that's my tip of today. All right, Michele, you've already given us one silly pun. Are we leaving here with another one, or was that enough for you?
So what I'm hearing is you want to know what my joke of the week is, huh?
No, but we're going to do it anyway. Go ahead.
Well, in honor of Release the Hounds, what do you call a dog who is getting old?
A dog who's getting old. I don't know, Michele. What?
Grandpa. What kind of dog is always taking a bath?
You got to stop doing more than one.
A shampoodle. A shampoodle. Because it was hounds. So I got to do more than one. Okay. But I'll leave you with this one. What do you call a dog magician? A dog that does magic.
A dog that does magic. I don't know. An abracadabra doodle?
Abracadabra door. Yeah. So
wait, say it again.
So. A labrador, but it's an abracadabra door.
No, it's not. None of that is.
The abracadabra.
Okay, friends.
A Labrador dog,
Abracadabra, labrador. You're just adding more to it.
I'm sorry.
Right, we're so sorry. We're just sorry for 50% of
this.
But thank you so much for listening to the Laugh Support Podcast. You can follow us on all the social media platforms, Instagram, YouTube, all of that. If you would like to email us, go to thelaughsup@gmail.com. Follow Michele VanDusen at Michelle's Comedy. MichelleVanDusen.org. Remember, it's Michelle with one L. And again, it's Junebug. Everything is Junebug Comedy. So thank you guys for listening. As I always say, Jesus and Junebug loves you. And Michelle with one L, tell them goodbye.
Goodbye. Release the hounds. Tune in. Send us an email. Like and subscribe. All right. Have a good one.